This is a quick overview on replacing the oil filter housing gasket on a 2013 Mini Cooper. This is a Mini Cooper S with a 1.6 liter turbo. This being a convertible, this is the R57 body style, and the engine is an N18 engine. So I've got it up here on a hoist. You do not absolutely need a hoist. You could definitely do this in your garage or in your driveway. But as far as the root cause or the reason why I'm replacing this oil filter housing gasket is I could see, so here's the oil pan. I could see a very steady drip coming from right about here. With a catalytic converter that's in the way, I have it removed. It's pretty difficult to see this. But I'm sure a lot of people misdiagnose that as the oil pan gasket. And these oil pan gaskets do leak, but I knew that was not the root cause. But to follow the oil up, it was actually coming from right here, this cavity right here. That's where the oil filter housing bolts to. Get the camera up in here. Yeah, so here's where the oil filter cooler bolts to, or filter housing. There's 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And those are all 8mm head bolts. This hose right here has to be undone. There's the clamp for it, I shoved it up. But that's from the turbocharger. That's the turbocharger oil drain hose that goes into the oil filter housing. Here is, obviously I'm looking up. Here is the cylinder head, the exhaust manifold. There's the turbocharger. This is a coolant line that supplies the turbocharger with coolant. Right about here is a very small electrical water pump that supplies coolant, pushes coolant up there. That has to be removed. That is bolted to the oil filter housing. Here's the connector for that water pump. This blue and red connector is for the lower oxygen sensor. So right off the bat, to do this job, you have to remove the heat shields that surround the turbocharger and exhaust the exhaust manifold. So as upper and lower heat shield, remove those. Then you're going to see this catalytic converter here. Here's where it bolts to the turbocharger. There's an oxygen sensor that has to be removed right here. So catalytic converter, and here's where it goes to the rest of the exhaust system. The bottom oxygen sensor can stay in place, or you can opt to remove that in case you want to try to avoid damage to it. Once you remove all that, then this heat shield becomes visible. This is in between the catalytic converter and the engine block. You have to remove this to get access to the bolts for the oil filter housing. Okay, here is the oil filter housing. There are 2 gaskets, 2 rubber O-ring type seal gaskets that, they get dry, they get brittle, start leaking pretty heavily. Here are the new gaskets from Molly. Part number is B32690. And let's see, here is a small electrical water pump that pumps water up to the turbocharger. So obviously you got 2 coolant lines to undo. There's 2 bolts that hold it to the oil filter housing. These 2 bolts, and they go right through those 2 holes. That is the upper oxygen sensor. But yeah, kind of a daunting job at first, but it's really maybe not as bad as what you'd think, depending on your skill level. Let's see. Obviously, this electrical connector has to be undone. That's for the oil pressure. I believe it's an oil pressure switch or a temp sensor. I'm not too sure offhand. I would think it'd be an oil pressure sensor. And that's pretty much it. I guess there's not really too much else to say on that, but again, the job's pretty doable. You definitely don't need a hoist. You can do this in your driveway or in your garage. Just be patient with yourself. Not really any specialty tools you need. Having an inspection mirror is really helpful. What, 8 and 10 millimeter sockets. Some wobble extensions are really nice to have. Some U-joint style swivel type fittings for your 3/8 or 1/4 inch drive ratchets are great. A 10 millimeter ratcheting wrench was handy to have in this situation to get access to some of the heat shield bolts. But otherwise, yeah, not a bad job. And yeah, I hope that helps someone out.